Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you. This is a special Christmas episode from the Thicc and Spooky Ghouls. We have my partner in life, my husband Ginger Ninja, joining me for this special episode. Um, in this episode, I kind of want to share something from the Filipino traditions. It was one of my favorite traditions in the Philippines, and it felt very significant this year because of the fact that every Christmas that I've been here, my grandmother was here. So it's going to be our first Christmas without her. And so here's a little something about um, something from our culture. Let me share it to you guys. And Ginger, if you wanted to say hi to everybody before I get started.
Hello.
Hi. So we've been together for quite some time now, and I've never told you about the Parol. I know you've probably heard me mention it many times before, but I've never actually talked about what it is. And I figured since we're in a podcast that focuses on, not just cryptids and everything else, but we're also talking about other cultures because of these cryptids and yokais and um, different things that we've discussed in this channel. I figured that bringing a little bit of the Filipino traditions into it, just talking about one of them, felt like it was a good fit for the podcast. So today I wanted to talk about the Filipino lantern, also known as the Parol. So, a long time ago, my grandmother actually raised me. And so I grew up in the Philippines with my grandmother. And my grandmother, her name is Natividad, and she was actually born on Christmas Day. So growing up, Christmas was always a really big holiday for us to celebrate. It was one of the biggest ones we celebrate because not only is Christmas really big in the Philippines, since the Philippines, like culturally, community is really, really big with us culturally, like we thrive in communities. And so not only is it a special holiday in Filipino culture, but it was also extra special for us because it was my grandmother's birthday as well. So it kind of went hand in hand. So during Christmas, my grandmother would introduce us to different traditions. In the Philippines, they would actually have children going from house to house, and they would sing Christmas carols so that they can get candy or coins as like a reward for their performance. And so they would go from house to house and actually like sing. They don't do a half-ass job. They genuinely sing different Christmas jingles, different Christmas songs so that they can gain some coins or some candy. So that was a really, really fun tradition that I kind of miss here because you guys don't have door-to-door caroling, Christmas carolers, I guess would be the word.
Yep.
Christmas carolers coming to the doors here. And so that's something I do miss because it really made you feel like the holidays were there because it was one of those things that people would come and kind of like lifted your spirits and got you really excited for Christmas because of the fact that there's like these different traditions and different things that happen that kind of get you excited for the Christmas celebration. Another one that I really enjoyed that I remember is my grandmother. There was 12 grandbabies on my grandmother's side. There's 12 of us. I am the youngest girl of 12, and I'm actually like the 11th of 12. And so she would actually have all the grandkids, that were in the Philippines. Some of them were already in the United States, but she would have a bunch of kids, one of her grandbabies sitting around, and she would actually serve us glasses with 7 Up and grenadine. So she would make her own version of Shirley Temple, and she would let us have that. And it was like a special Christmas treat. So that was like one tradition that I really enjoyed in the Philippines. Another one is because my mother was in the United States and my grandmother raised me, and I didn't really get to see my mom that often. It was around Christmas time that we would get a balikbayan box, which is like a big box full of gifts. And inside this box is different gifts from everybody, but I was always sure that there was going to be a box of a bag of Hershey's Kisses in there. Sometimes she would give us the large Hershey's Kisses, the really large ones that are seen every once in a while during the holiday times. She would also send us bags of jelly beans and Toblerone. So those were like the candies that I knew wouldn't be inside that box. And there'd be a couple years where we'd get these orange chocolates. They're like these chocolates that you smash on the table and they kind of break apart like orange slices, and it was like a dark chocolate or milk chocolate with an orange flavor. And so those were things that was always in the box on top of everything. And in the Philippines, when you open a box from America, there's just something that's like just the smell from it just smells like just smelling a box coming from the United States. There's a specific smell to it. I can't really explain the smell. It might be vanilla, but there's like the smell that definitely like that's what America smells like. That's what I grew up thinking because all the boxes that would arrive from my mom would be they would have that smell to it too. So that smell really triggers a nostalgia part of my brain. I don't know where that smell comes from because now I live here and I think I smell it when I go to specific aisles in the grocery store. I think like maybe the chocolate aisle, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the candy aisle.
Yeah. And one of the biggest traditions that was actually very noticeable, especially where I lived in the province, is the Filipino Christmas lanterns known as the Parol. So a Parol, let me explain what it is something that you create with paper and bamboo or paper and like popsicle sticks. Like it's something to do with like a very thin piece of wood that's flexible and bendable and paper or plastic or fabric. So they would make these star-shaped lanterns out of, paper and plastic or whatever devices that they can have. And they would make these little star lanterns and then they would put a light inside of them. So they would do that. And for the more expensive paroles, they were actually made out of a capiz shell. So this entire lantern is literally just capiz shell, capiz shells. And so it's kind of like mother of pearl in a sense, but very fragile and kind of transparent. It's a milky, transparent thing. It reminds me of mother of pearl, but you can see through it. So it would be called a capiz shell. I think it's Capis or Capiz shell. And so that would be the more expensive ones. You would see those lanterns, but then you would see the simple ones that, like people like I didn't live in a very rich area, so I lived in the province. We didn't have much money. So there's a lot of things that were handmade there and there'd be kids that would make paroles in class. So they would make paroles in class and they would tape them together and put their little candle or their little light source inside of it. And so what happens during Christmas time is you would see these star-shaped lanterns everywhere. They were decorated everywhere. They decorated houses, they decorated businesses, they decorated like the little shops that were in the neighborhoods because in the Philippines, like where I lived, there was a lot of like family-owned little huts that they would sell snacks. So they would have their house and then they would have like a little storefront where they live where they would sell different snacks and stuff like that. And so you would see them decorate their area and their streets with these star-shaped lanterns. And it was just so beautiful. And I remember that. Like, I love looking at Christmas lights. Every year we make an effort to drive and look at Christmas lights. And as much as I love looking at Christmas lights, there's just something completely different about seeing these star-shaped lanterns everywhere. I mean, there's Christmas lights as well, but the star-shaped lanterns just triggers a part of my brain that really takes me all the way back home. So, so during the Christmas season, you would see them everywhere, and it just lit up the streets. It was used as a light source, and they came in many different sizes. They can be really, really small, but then they would also make them extremely big. Like in one of the cities in the Philippines called San Fernando, they would have this thing called the Parade of Lights. And then it's where you see people basically doing this parade with these star shaped lanterns. And then some of them would have like 20-foot tall paroles, like 20 feet tall. And they would load them on truck beds and drive these trucks with these giant lit up star lanterns, like enormous. So, yeah, it was very common to have that parade. And it was just a tradition that I really, really enjoyed. I knew the basics of what a parol meant and what it was, but I never really understood the history of it until I did my research for this topic for the podcast. Are you with me still? You awake?
Oh, I'm here.
All right. So actually, let me show you a picture of a few paroles while you're at it. Let me just show you some pictures here. Here's one that is makeshift of plastic. You can see it. And then they have like little ruffles that they would put on the ends and they would hang this on windows. And sometimes in the streets, they would put like rope or fishing line across the street lamps or across the buildings. And they would hang these lanterns all over them. So some streets would have like so many lanterns while you're walking, they're just like right above you on the fishing lines, which is absolutely beautiful. I absolutely love them. So here's one that is made out of colorful plastic. And then here's one where it's being displayed at a place that sells it. And you can see the different styles of lights. So, oh, I forgot to share it with you. Be helpful. Hold on. Sorry.
Minor detail.
Oh, you can see it? You can see it?
I can see it.
Okay, okay. I'm just making sure you see it. So yeah, that's what they look like. So as you can see, it's like fashioned with a frame that's shaped like a star, and then they would have different geometrical patterns on some of the more fancy ones. And if you see this really big one over here, that one's made of the Kappa's shell right here. See the how much thicker it is? And then these are all paper. This is also Kappa's shell right here.
They
So
look like
they're
kaleidoscopes.
absolutely beautiful lanterns, and I just love them so freaking much. I like it just does something to me. So I did some research on the history of it all, and this tradition started predates Spanish colonization. Thank you. I can words. The Spanish
Mhm.
colonization and the American colonization. So this tradition was actually started um, way back in the day, and these lanterns were very similar to the old-fashioned Chinese lanterns. And so the original lanterns were made of bamboo reed. They were shaped into a star and then wrapped in rice paper. And then they would put a candle inside of it to light it up, and it would be their lantern for the holidays. And it was just something that they would decorate to light up the place, but it also brought some kind of beauty and peace to it. And the parol symbolizes victory over darkness, luck, hope, and even goodwill. But as the Spanish and American colonization began, the symbolism of a parol changed from being a symbol of victory over darkness, hope, luck, goodwill, all that stuff. It was then changed to fit more of a Catholic Christian ideal. And they changed the symbolism of these lanterns to be a reminder of the Star of Bethlehem. Do you know what the Star of Bethlehem is?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Star of Bethlehem is the star that is mentioned in the Bible that talks about the star that the wise men followed until they can find baby Jesus.
Is it like the
So
North Star?
I it was a star that was created when Jesus was born as a beacon for the wise men to know where to find the the savior is what
Mhm.
that is. So it was a star that was created to exist, and it was just called the Star of Bethlehem. And the wise men followed this star, and the star would guide them to where baby Jesus was. So it was just a star that was written in the book as the star that they followed. So that was known as the Star of Bethlehem, which led them to Bethlehem, where they found baby Jesus wrapped in some fabric in a manger surrounded by animals and all that stuff. So the symbol of the parol became the symbol of the Star of Bethlehem, a reminder of Star of Bethlehem, versus what its original meaning was. But as much as that was pushed, there was still some people that choose to believe that it was what it originally was rather than the religious ones. And now in modern times, people see it more back to its traditional meaning versus the more religious meaning behind the star for Christmas. And so another thing with this specific star or lantern, um, in religion, there would be this thing called the 9 day novena of dawn masses. And so it's called the Misa de Gallo. And basically, some people would carry these little paroles or this little lanterns on their way to church for mass. So they would use these lanterns to light their way to mass, and they would do that from December 16th until Christmas Eve. So you would have these people that would travel with these lanterns to the church so they can go to mass, travel back with the lanterns home, and they would do this for 9 days as of December 16th. And so that is more of the religion versus tradition of these lanterns. And I didn't know that that was the history of the parol. I knew that it symbolized victory. I knew that part, but I didn't know the religious meaning behind the parol or what the religious meaning that was put behind the parol. It wasn't the original, you know? So the reason this really triggered me is as I was talking to you this year, grandma passed away this year in February, and it's going to be my very first Christmas ever without grandma. It's going to be our very first Christmas ever without grandma. And so for me, it just made me really want something that kind of was a presence of her or some kind of reminder of her. So for me, I really wanted a parole this year so that I can have something in the house for Christmas time to remind me of grandma. So for me this year, I'm very, very much like emotional, and the Christmas is coming around, and it's going to be a hard Christmas, as you already know. And so I like this really just lit up my need or my desire to, you know, have a parol for a house. But on top of that, it kind of also gave me this idea of sharing about it. One thing that's really, really cool is in 2020, during COVID-19, Disney actually made a series of different holiday shorts, and they were from like different backgrounds, so different cultural backgrounds on these shorts. And one of them was actually a Filipino one, and it was called, sorry, I'm trying to find it. It was called, why can't I find my notes for it? Oh, yeah. So it's a series called From Our Family to Yours, and then it would have like a subtitle to it. So for the Filipino one, it says From Our Family to Yours, Lola. And as you know, what does Lola mean?
So is your grandma.
Yeah, so Lola means grandma. So they made a short. It's about 3 to 4 minutes long, and it's called "From Our Family to Yours," and it said Lola. And so in this video, you guys, I really recommend you watch it. It's a very short 3 to 4 minute film. I think you should watch it. But it starts off with this little girl who gets a gift from a family member, and she's very little. And this gift that she gets is a Mickey Mouse stuffed toy. And so she gets that, and then many, many years pass, and then her family ends up moving to the United States. And when she's here, you know, she's watching her grandbabies grow up and graduate from high school, graduate from college. So, you know, it shows her moving to the United States with her family and moving away from the Philippines into America, which is really, really far from home. And so she would have a granddaughter hang out with her during Christmas, and she taught her granddaughter how to make these paper lanterns. And so every year it became a tradition for her to make these star-shaped lanterns with her grandbaby and spend some quality time with her grandbaby. And so it's just a really cute, bittersweet short, and it just shows that as this girl grows up, she gets more and more distant from tradition and gets more and more busy with her life, with wanting to be with her friends, wanting to socialize, wanting to do this, and just moving away from tradition and growing up, and, you know, growing up as an individual. And so at one point, she doesn't want to make paper lanterns anymore because it's either boring or she doesn't find it as entertaining. And so she kind of just stops doing it. And it's a very bittersweet short, and I really suggest you guys watch it. It ends really, really sweet, but it is a tearjerker. I watched it recently and cried the entire time, but I am emotional and I do already miss my grandmother, and my grandmother's passed away. So it's very, very much fresh cut for me. So, the parol is a very unique tradition that many Filipinos hold very close to their hearts. And even now in the United States, you can sometimes find some Filipino households that have a parol displayed outside their door or through their window as a small reminder of home. And one thing that I think is really, really cool that I learned today is that there's actually a Parol festival here in the United States. There are actually several cities that have a Parol festival, and there's actually one in San Francisco. So, the one in San Francisco is celebrating this year, they're celebrating their 22nd annual Parol festival. And so it's going to take place on December 14th this year. So it's really, really cool that even though we've moved away from home, we have found community here in the United States. And there's places that you can kind of reconnect with other Filipinos, get connected with your community, and celebrate some Filipino Christmas traditions. And so in this, they would have a workshop that would teach you how to make your own parol, and then they would have a parol contest, so you can make your own parol and submit it in the contest. And I think their prize for the winner is $800 if your parol wins the voting. And then they, of course, have live music and performances, because it wouldn't be a Filipino party without music and singing. And they have their own little mini parade of lights, and they just celebrate in the spirit of community. So, this tradition is a warm and bright reminder of our home and our roots. So, I hope you enjoyed this little Christmas special. And I just wanted to say salamat and maligayang Pasko sa inyong lahat, which means thank you, and I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas. What'd you think, Jinja?
Amazing. Love it. Thank you for sharing.
No, thank you for listening. It's really hard to record these things alone, so it's always nice to have someone there to listen to it. And it's good. You get to know a little bit about your, you know, your life partner's roots. So,
Always a pleasure.
with that, I wanted to say Merry Christmas from the Thicc and Spooky Ghouls.
So
Jinja.
thick, so spooky.
All right, let's go ahead and say goodbye to everything. You want to do my outro with me? I know that Miso's not here, but you can do the outro, right?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't know what it is.
Okay, so I'm gonna say we'll stay thick, and then you're gonna say you stay spooky. You got it?
All right.
All right. Ready? We'll stay thick, and
You stay spooky.
good night, everybody. Bye.
Good night.